talking back and forth.
We don't have to be slick.
You don't.
But before we get started, how's my hair, bro? I'm all right.
You good.
Okay, good. Thanks, bro. That's important.
What's up, local people? Welcome to Talking with Tumua, episode number 2. In this episode, we got a very special guest. This guy right here, I talked about him in my first podcast. He's one of the reasons why I do stand-up comedy. One of my idols. This is a local boy, born and raised here in the islands. Started his comedy career in Hawaii, made a huge impact in Hawaii. He followed his dreams, took his talents to the mainland, and made a huge impact up there as well. Headline and performed at iconic venues such as the Comedy Store, Punchline, the Ice House. I mean, this guy did it all. He made a bunch of comedy albums. He also produced and created a number of TV specials and films like High School Days, All in the Ohana, classic local comedies. And currently right now he has his own TV show called Tooling Around. And it just blows my mind that I used to look up to this guy when I was a kid. And now I shared the stage with him, and it's such an honor to have him on this podcast right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the one and only Mr. Andy Bumatai.
Aloha Tumua. And you know what, bro? I'm sorry, but I can't follow that intro. You know what I mean?
Did some research.
Bro, hey, I've worked with guys with their own television shows that didn't do as much research as you did. So mahalo, bro. I appreciate that.
Good.
By the way, everyone always says born and raised in Hawaii, but I was born in Germany.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was in the service. And he was in Germany where he met my mom, who was German, who still is German. My father has passed away. But my mother, he met her. She was a war bride, and she came over and became a naturalized citizen. And I didn't get to Hawaii till I was, I don't know, maybe 4th grade.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, people don't. I mean, you got to say 4th grade. I was in Waianae Elementary and then intermediate and high school. So, in fact, when I was growing up in Waianae, the Samoans, I used to hang around a lot of the Samoans in Nanakuli, right? They always tell me, "How come you talk so good? Huh? You sound like a haole when you talk." and it's because. Before my dad was discharged, we lived. Well, I guess my first language was German, evidently, but my mom, I didn't. I don't remember any of it, of course. And then we lived on the mainland, primarily San Francisco and Seattle. And then my dad came home, and we lived Kalihi, and then we went upgrade Waianae.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. You went to Waianae High School because I remember. Some stories my dad told me. He went to Waianae High School too. My whole side of my dad's side from Waianae
your
side.
Your family is famous on that side, bro. Don't even start.
No, yeah, he remember. I think you're a little bit older than my dad.
Yeah.
But I remember you said C. Ryder. I didn't know you're from Germany.
Yeah.
So Pidgin was your second language then.
Yeah, primarily. In fact, when I was doing Daily Pidgin, right?
Right. On YouTube,
Yeah, on YouTube, and it was successful. But I can't tell you how many brothers. Wow, you Pidgin sound like one holy guy, bro. So but and they're right, because you have to understand, my father, who spoke only Hawaiian to my grandmother, right? He was Filipino Hawaiian, but my grandmother only spoke Hawaiian, right? So my dad spoke Hawaiian and my mom spoke German, but of course they spoke English together, right?
Right.
Well, they wanted their kids to be Americans, right? So
it's like every family.
My dad was part of that generation where they were punished if they spoke Hawaiian.
Really?
Yeah. So and he looked at it like, oh, that's only that's the language the fishmaki guys only talk. You know what I mean? So, but every once in a while, aole ho'opakeo, and I thought everybody spoke like that when I'm growing up, right? In San Francisco, hey, aole ho'opakeo. Yeah. Hey, what are you? No stick tongue, stupid. You know what I mean? But, so stuff's, but anyway, as a result, my mom who has a strong German accent. If you listen to my mom speak, people go, "What's your mom saying?" And I don't hear it, of course, right?
Right.
Because you don't hear the thing. But she was a stickler about how things were enunciated, and so it's
crazy.
interesting, bro.
Yeah, because I know there was a time where they tried to ban the Hawaiian language. So that
Oh
was,
yeah, no, they did.
So you got to experience that.
It was. Oh yeah, you were punished. My father's generation.
And they took out the hula too, all the culture, right?
Oh yeah, well
They tried
it was
to.
illegal for well
Yeah.
bro. I always tell people when they go, wow, how come you speak holy, you fricka, and I go, hey, you know what? The first thing a culture does when they take over another culture is they learn their language.
Right.
Learn for speak good, boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why I went Puno.
Yeah, no, I mean, people, you know how fortunate you were. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The ability, I'm telling you, you can be strong, you can be handsome, you can be rich, but nothing will help you more than the ability to concisely convey your ideas.
Exactly. Yeah. I learned all that. I mean, I majored in communicology, which is no, yeah, that's a real degree.
That's a real word.
Yeah,
it's not like a pin. Communicology.
No, it's a degree they only have at UH. They made it, and it's pretty much like the speaking part of communications. So they teach you like the science of speaking. They make up all kind of rules they can, but they teach you how to talk, and I guess it's turning out right. So you started off in Waianae, 4th grade, yeah.
When I elementary.
You came elementary, went Waianae High School. When did you started to be a comedian? When did that spike your interest?
You know what? It's interesting because for show and tell, right? I used to. I hesitate because there's actually two roads on this. One that I always thought was the reason I did comedy, and then as I got older and I started thinking about it, I came upon the second path on why I did comedy. So this is going to be a little kind of convoluted, but
okay.
I was always a funny kid, right? Class clown, typical stuff, right? But and I used to, for show and tell, I would do Cosby routines. I would play the album and pantomime it. And it, and people really enjoyed it. They all laughed, but it was the thing.
Right.
Then I memorized the bit, right? No, why is there air? You remember? I don't know, maybe too young.
No, I know Bill Cosby. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is before he was a pervert.
Right.
And then I did that, and that, right? And then I really didn't think about it, but I realized when I was very young that I had it, and it was about timing more than anything. That's a natural gift, I think. If anything, it's just timing. And part of good timing is listening, right? We'll talk more about that.
Right.
But, so then, as I got older, then I went to Waianae High School, right? My dad kicked me out of the house, and I was living on my own, right? And I was 11th grade.
Kicked you out at 11th grade.
11. Oh, bro. We won't go there.
Okay.
But he was old school plantation. Right. Okay. And by the way, Waianae, that was not that unusual.
Right.
Okay. He was just an alcoholic, abusive jerk, and okay, fine. But anyway, so 11th grade, I had to get a job. I had to get an apartment, right? I had to work, so I dropped out of school, right? So basically, that was where I was at. Then later on, I went into this, it was called the Concentrated Employment Program for Dropouts from Waianae, right? Me and my brother did it. And you had warehousing, you had cosmetology and automotive, and me and my brother went, or cooking. And me and my brother went, if we cook, we can eat. Right. So we took cooking, right? But then we got into a fight with these Kalihi boys, and that was the end of that. But anyway, when I graduated, kind of, from that program, they placed me as a busboy downtown, right?
Right.
So I'm a busboy, and I see these brothers coming in, all suit, nice shirt, briefcase. They sit down, drink coffee, make a few phone calls, then they leave, then they come back and drink. So I walk up, brother, what do you do for a living, bro? You just sit here, look nice, and I grew up with construction, right? He goes, I'm a sales guy. I said, I want to be a sales guy. They don't work, right? And they drive a nice car. And anyway, so I did some research, figured it out, and became a salesman, right? Lied, with college, I just lied through my teeth.
Lied the resume, everything.
Lied on everything. I don't suggest it, but I was trying to survive, right?
Right.
So then, as I'm doing these presentations, I'm getting big laughs because I'm selling copy machines and fixing copy machines. This is what I did, right? So I go to this party, and this was a breaking point in my career. I go to this party up on Tantalus. The owner of the company had this party, and there were people from the mainland there. I went to see All You Wanted to Know About Sex But Was Afraid to Ask by Woody Allen. I don't know if you saw this movie. Okay.
I know who Woody Allen is, but I never seen that movie.
It's a classic,
okay.
Right? But anyway, he does these. Anyway, so I go see that movie, then I go to the party. And they go, hey, where were you, man? The party started an hour ago. I said, I went to see this movie. You got to see this thing. And I start doing the bits, right? Now I'm standing up and I'm killing it at this party, right? Had mainland people, local people, boom, boom, boom. And afterwards, I actually got applause, the whole bit. I sat back down. One of the mainland guys came up to me and said, you know something? And I was 21, I think, at the
21.
time. Yeah. You know, and by the way, I was the number 2 salesperson.
For the copy machines.
Yeah, for the copy machines in this thing. And I was pretty good at it, right? But he comes up to me and he says, if you don't pursue stand-up comedy, you are missing your calling. If you just did that off the top of your head after seeing a movie,
right.
You know, we're going to lose a great salesman. They'll kill me if they heard me saying this to you, but that's what you should do.
Wow.
And I went, oh, really? Now, you have to understand something at the time. It's not like, you know, I mean, hey, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur here.
Right.
No one knew what stand-up was in Hawaii. There were no
Definitely,
clubs.
yeah.
There were no, open mic nights.
It was just Don Ho, pretty much, yeah.
It was pretty much, yeah,
just
pretty
Don
much
Ho.
Don Ho.
Yeah.
And bro, let me tell you something. I know I tend to ball out, so
No,
jump
it's
in
fine.
and just interrupt.
I like this.
Yeah, so what happens is I start going, well, I'll go to some clubs. Now, here's the fork in the road. So I end up doing, clubs. And you got to understand, bro, when I was starting out, excuse me, Mr. Club owner? Yeah, what? I do stand-up comedy. I was wondering if I could get some stage time, Oh, yeah. Oh, tell me some of your jokes.
Right there, yeah.
Well, bro, it doesn't actually. Well, hold on. How much was that? Oh, Bloody Mary. What? For 5. Okay, hold on. Go ahead. Okay, so 2 guys walk up to it. Wait, hold on. What? No more olive. What do we want? What's wrong with olives? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So the guy walks up to it. No, wait, hold on. So hey, what? That's 2 or 1 olive. That was the deal, right? And I'm like, you understand, sir? He goes, well, I like to throw you on stage, boy, because, I'm interested in what you do. But I got too many people in the crowd right now. Let's wait till the crowd gets smaller because I don't want to, So it was like, right?
Oh, humbug, yeah.
Right. So anyway, I'm going to digress on the second route, okay?
Of how you became a comedian.
This is maybe one of the second times I've said this in public, okay? My mother, when we lived in San Francisco, she's into comedy. And this is Dick Gregory, Lenny Bruce, the button-down mind of oh God, I forget his name. Anyway, these are the old guys from the 50s,
okay,
early 50s, right? And in fact, and Rusty Warren, who by the way lives here in Hawaii, who was one of the groundbreaking female comedians. When you bought her album, we'd go to the store. They would put it in a brown bag so no one would see the cover because it said "Knockers Up."
Oh,
right, yeah. And this was you could play that stuff in a kindergarten
now you
room
can,
today.
You can.
But back then, right? And she would. And here's the thing: my mom would have all her friends over, and they would play these comedy albums, and all these women, 3 or 4, sometimes 5 of them, would sit in front of the hi-fi and just laugh. Okay. Now, my dad, who, like I mentioned, he was an alcoholic. He was abusive physically and mentally, and it was hell when he was around, basically, for me during that period when he was still strong, right? And the only time I really seen my mom have fun and enjoy herself was when she was listening to the comedy albums. And I think, now that I think about it, that ingrained upon me that I want to do that for people.
Wow.
Yeah. And I never even realized it till late. Well, I was talking to my mom, who's on in years right now. And she was saying, you know, those were the best times. She goes, and I remember you as a little kid just sitting there going, Mom, what does that mean? Lenny Bruce, for God's sake, right? And I'm going, and she goes, I can't explain it to you. You don't understand. But she goes, but you're having so much fun, you know? And I think that kind of in the back of my mind.
You say, I want to be that. I want to make that people laugh like that.
I want to do that for people. Not make them laugh, make them happy, where they can forget things for a little while. So when I started up, now, meanwhile, back at the ranch, right? So now I'm trying to find a gig, right? Now, Frank de Lima is working at the Waikiki Sand Villa, okay? And I'm like using my sales techniques. I'm canvassing every club I can get to the owner of or manager in Waikiki, looking for a place
hustling,
to do hustling. And I'm on the bus, bro. By the way, I have quit my lucrative sales job. I went all in because I said, if I don't believe in myself, how can I get other people?
And you're making pretty good money with the sales, I assume, right?
I had 2 Mercedes. I lived on Tantalus. I was 21. And I just blew it all off.
Just shut it down and followed your dreams.
Sold everything and said, I'm going to be a stand-up, right? And anyway, so I'm going out there. And then I walk into this club. I'm so burnt out from the rejection. I said, I cannot go in there. Can't honor it. I'm going to catch a bus home. Plus, I had the last bus to catch, right? So I went, what am I doing? I actually turned around. One more club. Come on. It was the noodle shop with Frank de Lima. And Millie said, what do you do? I said, I do stand-up comedy. She goes, oh, that's so interesting. Would you be interested in playing the breaks for Frank? So I go, and I don't know who Frank is from Adam. I don't know who anybody is, right? And Frank's up there, Kalamaula, playing kind of mellow Hawaiian music on a Wednesday. She goes, I'll give you the weekends, $10 a set. That's $20, bro, a week. What? And I get, oh, great. I come back on the weekend. Now, K-O-H-O, he's killing it, slaying. The place is packed, and they are laughing so much they can hardly breathe. And I'm like, how am I going to follow this, right? So I go up in between. Now, they had this habit. They do their show, and then they go schmooze in the audience. Was Chuck Tilton, Kimo Kekoeva, and Frank, right? They were Nakolohe, they were the trio, right? So I'm on stage, and they're in the audience. How you doing? How you doing, brother? Why didn't you come a long time? And I'm like, excuse me, can you? And I'm dying, right?
Nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening, and I'm not that good at it because I haven't been doing it, right? So I'm dying, right? And I said, oh, man, this is crazy, right? And I was about to quit. I can't do this. I got to find something else. Melvin Lead walks up to me in the break. She sees me, you know, downtrodden on the side, bro, head down, like, oh, bro. She walks up. She says, hey, boy, you know what? You're not that funny, but you get balls. You're going to be all right. And she just kind of grabbed me by the shirt. You're going to be all right. Don't quit. Because she could tell already.
Right.
And I went, wow. So I kept at it.
You got to keep fighting,
Oh, you got, well, bro, you know, bro. You just keep throwing your hands and hoping something hits. Even when that bugger is bigger. Well, you know about that.
Yeah.
You went face to face with a lot of guys bigger than you.
Right.
So anyway, so now I'm doing that. And again, I'm dying, right? And now as the comedy gods would have it, right? I never did break through. I never did get big laughs. But Rap Replinger decides to leave Booga Booga. Who else is doing comedy?
Right.
So they get wind of this kid at the noodle shop, dying like a rat, but get brass balls. So Edward and Jimmy, right? That's James Grant Benton and Edward Kahea, come in and watch me, and afterwards go, hey, you want to be part of our comedy group? We're called Booga Booga. I don't know who Booga Booga is, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, $100 a week. Whoa!
Jumped right off the seat.
What? A week? Yeah, we do 5 shows, 2 on Saturday, 100. Oh, bro, I'm there, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, come down this Saturday and watch what we do because Rap's leaving. Then you got to do his lines. So learn his lines. Oh, yeah, no problem, no problem. I go down there. I watch Booga Booga. Rap Replinger is like Robin Williams on steroids on that night. He is off the wall, improv,
talented,
slaying the place, right? I'm going, how am I gonna replace this guy, right? But $100 a week, bro.
And you were like 22 by now, probably 21.
Yeah, probably 21, 22, something.
Wow.
Youngest
way younger than all those guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they call me kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So somewhere around, I'm not that good with chronology, so I'm dyslexic. So anyway, so I do that, right? And I do it for I don't know, about a year or something, But they're not on time, and I'm a nut for on time. And you gotta imagine, I start in, okay, we can do this, but hey, I'm on time. I don't do drugs, and I don't swear.
Right.
Okay, just understand. Guess what?
What?
Jimmy's sticking a needle in his arm. Edward's sucking down a fifth of scotch every night, and then they're swearing on stage.
Right.
I'm like, bro, I can't. Bro, if you don't use the F-bomb right, I'll say F-bomb. If you don't use the F-bomb right, the joke isn't funny unless you say F. And I said, well, if you gotta say F to get a laugh, it's not funny.
Right.
Right. Well,
Easy route. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that doesn't work out. After a while, I get the thing. So I go to Kojak's, right? And I'm playing Monday nights, and nobody's there. If I have 5 people, it's a big... But the guy was a comedy fan, Mel Pinzari, who owned that little club.
Kojak's. Is that in Waikiki?
No, it was across the old police station by Wilder Avenue, in Puna, right across from Punahou.
Oh, okay.
Right, almost kitty corner across from Punahou. Anyway, so I'm there.
Monday nights,
dying, right? So I have this idea to do a comedy show, and a friend of mine, Larry Fleece, says, oh, yeah, hey, I got it. He says, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go back to my high school and make fun of all the things I used to see, right? So we do that, and that's called... High School Days.
Right.
And I did a performance
in there,
at the thing with Moke Ale and Richard Nato. And anyway, so we put that on the air, right? Now, I don't know TV.
Right.
I don't even own a TV at this point, right? So the thing airs, right? And I come around the corner to play my Monday night, and there's a line around the block. I mean, a line like I never saw before.
Yeah.
I went, he gave my night to sunset. And I went home. And the phone rings, and Mel goes, where are you? I said, bro, you gave my night to sunset. Another band, right?
Right. You thought it was them.
My night. He goes, no, you idiot. So, and I had to walk, right? Because I didn't have no car at this time. So I walked back, and I got on. And from that day, it was packed for months because of this TV.
High
This
school
is
days.
before internet, before social media, before YouTube, any of that stuff. So a lot of college people were there, and I was kind of close to their age, right? So from there, right, that's when the Beamer brothers came in. Okay. In fact, I'll never forget, my opening act was Sunset, the band I thought took my date, right?
Wow.
And they're playing Honolulu City Lights, and I'm sitting next to Caleb Beamer, and their version is so different. He turns to me and he says, is that my song? Each night, the Honolulu City Lights, anyway. So I said, yeah, well, and then he goes, hey, you know what? We're opening in Waikiki. Would you like to come be our opening act in Waikiki, right? And he says, and I go, wow, I'm doing well here. He says, how much you make over here? I said, bro, $500 a week, right? Because, right? He says, what if I gave you 1,000?
Wow.
I went, 1,000 a week? Bruh, bang! Now, this is all in a span of about a year, right?
Everything's falling into place right now. Yeah.
But we did 5 nights a week, 2 shows a night. I got think about that. What if I said to you, you got to do, 10, 11, 12, 13 shows for $1,000.
That's right? A lot of energy.
Yeah, but not only that, you know, if you were if I was your manager, I'd go, no, let's reboot, right? Anyway, but I do it, right? Mm-hmm. And it works. And then Chemo gets fired by the Beamer brothers. Chemo McVeigh was the guy who discovered Don Ho.
Right.
He did the Beamers through their heyday. And then he says to me, hey, listen, how about I manage you? I said, okay, great. So he goes, let me see what I can do, right? Mm-hmm. He gets me the Monarch Room for a year and a half for $1 million. $1
million.
$1 million. Bro, I'm from Wynot. I've been doing comedy for about a year and a half at this point. I went from $20 to $1 million in about a year and a half, right? And here's the deal. At this point, I guess I was got to be 25, maybe 26. Again, I'm not that good with the numbers. Right?
That's still young.
Yeah. So now I got a house in Wailaiki, rented, and I got a red Porsche, and Chemo stealing me blind. Right. But there's, when you go from $20 a week to think about it. I can't even do the math on $1 million years. You know what I'm saying? And I'm
crazy.
Like, yeah, baby, this is it. And I walk out, thank you, aloha, you know, Monarch Room. All blue-haired tourists from the mainland. And I went, not a beep, not a laugh.
Because I assume all your stuff was local comedy, going into that?
Yes.
Yeah, and they all come from all Howleys in the crowd?
Not only that, it's all talk tours, and it's back in the day when they filled the places, and the Monarch Rooms were coming to me going, you got to change your material. We're going to fire you. Chemo would say, you can't fire him. We have a contract.
Yeah.
Year and a half, I suffered through that. And I got to tell you something. That what I learned during that period, you know, is you can't make decisions based on money. Because I should have stayed at Kojak's. Mel Pinzari told me that. You know, if we weren't on microphone, I would tell you what he really said to me. And it was some very colorful language. But he said, you're not ready. You think you're ready because there's nobody else in this town doing what you're doing. He says, you can compare yourself to Bob Newhart, to all the, you know, Shecky Green, the guys who know how to do this, who dedicated their lives to learn. Nah, you're some guy up there telling stories about, you know, surfing on the beach. You know, and I went, wow, $1 million, bro. Yeah.
So you had to adjust and tweak the material, I assume, for that, in the Monarch Room.
Yeah.
How did you do
Don
that?
Ho came in. I go to Don Ho's.
Oh, okay.
And I do, and I pick his brain, and he liked me, and you know, he helped me a lot, and then I just tried to change my sensibility. And the problem I had, if I had to put my finger on anything, was that I had a local mentality, not about the material, but not grasping the world. I remember talking to Jay Leno, who I met way before he was famous.
Wow.
And he would say, and we'd go, oh yeah, this, and he'd talk about, I was in Albuquerque, I was in, you know, I was in New York, I was in like this, and I would say things about, well, yeah, but that's not, he goes, Andy, that's not how it is here. But you have to open your mind to what's it like across the country.
Right.
And that's the problem I had. I couldn't, I mean, I do it now, but not early enough did I learn how to open my mind to
expand. Yeah.
And I got to tell you something, Brian. And this goes. You look at Country Comfort. You look at Kalapana. You look at you know, a lot of big stars from Hawaii. When they got to the point where they started, you know, like whoa, even C&K, right? That's when they hit that what I call the local ceiling. They almost felt guilty about being successful. Robert Cazimero and I had a long conversation about when I was driving a Porsche and he was driving a Mercedes, right? And he goes, "Bro, you put up with grief from the local people." I said, "Yeah. Well, you're acting holy with your Porsche, Andy, huh? You're acting holy." I go, "Why does success only equate to holy people? Why can't locals be successful? Why can't locals drive Mercedes and Porsche, you know?" So, you know, there's this inherent, it's not quite Alamihi, you know, the Alamihi syndrome. You know that one, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a little beyond, but small kind alamihi,
Right.
you know.
Wow. That's so.
Yeah.
All this success you got was within a year, 2 years of your first doing stand-up comedy. You're like a year in, you get the Monarch Room, you get that $1 million contract.
It's probably a little longer than
Little
that,
longer,
but
but
nothing
roughly.
longer than 2 years.
Yeah, that's
I mean, how long
Unheard
have you
of.
been doing stand-up?
about 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah,
Imagine
3
if
years.
someone said to you right now, bro, I'll give you $2 million to play.
Yeah, I'll lose my mind. Yeah, yeah.
Lose your mind.
Yeah, and that's totally like different from like the mainland comics. You know, they hustle hard. They
Yeah.
go open mics,
Yeah.
try to become a host, a feature, and
Yeah.
then you. So, at what point did you try to take your talents to the mainland?
Well, what happened was I went I married my high school sweetheart, right?
Okay.
And then I realized that chemo was stealing me blind, right? Which is, that's a song that many people have sung, right? And by the way, for those people out there, I love chemo. I always will, and I don't blame him. His wife had multiple sclerosis. He was ill. If
Okay.
my wife was sick, Tumua, I love you, but I would eat a hole through the middle of your chest to save her life.
Right.
Okay, and that's basically what he did.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah.
And as a man, I do not blame him for that. He, and he created it. It's not like he came in after I had $1 million, and he created the money, and then it's interesting. What I learned from that whole period was cash flow is the trick. You just got to get cash moving by. Even if you don't hold a lot of it,
Right.
as long as it's moving by, every once in a while, you can stick your beak in there and grab some. It's when there's no motion that it's a problem. And he created motion, right? So I always thanked him for that. But I went broke. I had a million and something, $1.5 million, maybe dollars. Oh, sorry.
And you were like, say what, like 25 by now?
Yeah, probably 25,
25,
26.
26.
Yeah. The reason I say that is because after I went broke, right? And we bought the canoe house with what money was left over that I have, and then that ate it. So I said, you know what? And I was going through a divorce, and I was broke, and the only good thing about that nightclub is I met my wife,
Right.
my wife now. And I said, you know what? And we were getting along. And then I said, you know what else have I got to lose? So I moved to the mainland and started working open mic nights at the Comedy Store to rebuild.
Right.
But the difference was these guys have been all doing comedy for 10 minutes. I've been doing comedy for 2 years in all kinds of settings. I was killing it. And you only do 10 minutes.
Killing at the open mic at the Comedy Store. Yeah.
In what they call the OR, the original
room,
right?
yeah.
And I'm doing the improv, and I have an act, and it's
Right.
honed, and it's actually, I've been doing it now for a few years, right? So all of a sudden, I get noticed by some agents, especially Jeff Wald, who is still a good friend. He used to manage Helen Redding. He was married to her with Helen Redding, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So he goes, hey, would you be interested in doing some opening acts? Bro, if there's money in it, right?
Yeah.
So I went on to open for, Tom Jones, Paul Anka, Kenny Loggins, Charlie Daniels, these type of people. Now, it sounds glamorous, but you have to understand, you open for Tom Jones, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tom Jones Show. Yeah! They all rush to the stage with their cameras. And now, the comedy stylings of Mr. Andy Bumatai. You walk out, the whole audience goes, turns around and walks back and sits down, and you know what I mean?
Right.
But you killed 20 minutes, and I got better at it. But anyway.
At least you're getting paid too, Yeah.
Paid well.
Paid well.
Paid well. But there's a comic, I wish I could remember his name. He used to walk out in those situations, and his opening line was, you ever order dinner, ladies and gentlemen, and there's that little piece of parsley? You didn't order the parsley. It's there to kind of dress things up. Tonight, I'm that parsley. So just,
Yeah.
But I got good at it. I played the Catskills. I traveled all over the country and played stuff. And then I called my girlfriend up at the time, and I said, hey, you know what? This is a new whole chapter in my life. Why don't you come do it with me? right? So we did that for 8 years.
She was all excited, I bet.
Huh?
She was all excited.
No, she didn't want to do it.
She didn't want to do it?
Are you kidding? She goes, I heard so many stories, about, you and entertainers and, and all this. And I said, listen, I don't want to do this without you, right? In fact, I would go to places and other comics, including some very famous people that today, whose names will go unknown, saying, what are you doing bringing a girl? When you get famous, there'll be lots of girls.
Yeah.
You know how weird it was to just go, yeah, but I'm in love? Does that, no? It's crazy, right? But anyway, so I do that, right? And have some success. And then what happened, after 8 years of being with my wife, she gets pregnant, okay? And we go do this thing, and I go, and I never forget, God, I'm going to be a dad, right? So I said, honey, we're moving back to Hawaii because I want my kids grow up in Hawaii because,
it's the
I
best
like learn
place.
for
Yeah,
beef. But I had this nightmare. We lived in Topanga Canyon at the time. I had this nightmare they'd grow up in the valley and like, hey, Dad, guide me with a spoon for sure. And I'm like, ugh. So we came back
Take
to
them to Hawaii. Yeah.
Right. And then, my daughter went Kamehameha and my boy went to Mid-Pac. And, I probably was at the height of my. Probably could have moved to the next
Could have kept
stage,
going.
but I made the decision to put a priority on the kids.
The family first.
Yeah, family
that's
first,
that's respected.
Yeah, but
so
I'm broke today because of it.
So yeah, Mid-Pac is a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, bro. Kamehameha, when she got in there, it's like winning the lottery, bro.
Yeah, right.
Oh, bro, Mid-Pac. I actually went to Mid-Pac at one point and go, okay, listen, enough with the fundraisers. What's the real cost of going to this school?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I remember you talked to me about it when we was at the Blue Note in the green room about you tweaking your material when you had to go to the mainland, from like going local to universal, and you said it was just a fine few things, because I always wonder like what would happen if I go to the mainland and try to do some comedy, but I only have some local references. But explain or try to explain how you shaped up your material.
Well, for me, it happened in a very strange way. A guy came here, right? Who's and I won't mention his name because I think he's still around. Mm-hmm. But he stole a bunch of my material.
Really?
And a friend of mine who came here, right, a mainland comic who I got to know at the Comedy Store, came here, and then he heard my act. Then he went to Chicago, and he heard this guy doing my material. And he's staring at this guy. He's sitting in the club. He's staring at this guy. And the guy says to him, hey, what's wrong with you, pal? You don't seem to be laughing much. What's your name? And my friend says, my name is Andy Bumatai.
Oh.
And he just stopped dead. And he's like kind of trying to look through the thing. And he knows, because it's a Howley guy. He looks Irish. But he's like, oh. And he goes, and then his act just went downhill because he stopped doing my stuff, right? So then afterwards, he comes up to me and goes, hey, listen, what, you a friend with Andy's? And he says, yeah, man, what are you doing? You're ripping him. So they have a little talk. And he calls me up, the comic who was doing my material.
The stealer.
Okay, bro,
yeah.
Bro, Andy, listen, man. I was in Chicago. I was dying. And I had, so I did one of your bits and it worked. And then I did another one of your bits and it worked. And, I had to tweak them a little bit, to Chicago. But, man, I ended up doing your whole freaking third album or something, whatever. And I said, really? But what did you do to the bits?
Started taking notes.
So for the next hour, really? He goes, yeah, you can't say uku. You got to say head lice. You got to do, really. And that's the first time I went, my stuff might work. And this is when I realized, to answer your question, Tumua, it's the comedy mind that you apply to it, okay? In other words, the observational is the same. It's just instead of saying stuff that's colloquially exoteric, you say it in a different way.
Right.
Like there was a guy one time, like I used to do this thing, they're trying to make 3-day work, 4-day work week. And they say, hey, Hawaiians, no, they'll go, let me start over. They say Hawaiians are lazy. Well, you know what, bro? Remember when they were trying to introduce the 4-day work week? Not one Hawaiian complained about adding that extra day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, you can do that. You just change,
You just change it up, yeah.
Now, you can't do things about, you can't make reference to, certain Hawaiian food, like lau lau.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm going to look like one lau lau.
Yeah.
And like, I remember when I was at the Monarch Room, I said, yeah, I like those tourists that wear those those women that wear those pleated things. They lift up their arms and they look like a kite, right? And it never got a laugh till someone came to me and says, they think you're saying kike.
Oh.
And I went, what's a kike? I don't know what is a kike. And he go, a kike is it's a derogatory term for, I think, Jewish people.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either. Here's another one, bro. You got to be careful. Mahalo, right?
Yeah.
How often you say, oh, hey, mahalo?
Mahalo, yeah.
Hey,
All the time,
excuse me,
yeah.
Can you bring me one water? Mahalo, right? This guy comes up to me, he goes, what did you say to me, man? In San Diego. I said, oh, could you please bring me... No, after that, man, what did you call me, man? I said, no, I said, mahalo, it's Hawaiian. He says, thank you. Yeah. What? Mahalo, M-A-J-A-H-O, mahalo means wet.
Oh.
And it means that's what you call wetbacks. Hey, mahalo.
What? So similar. I didn't even...
You and me
I gotta
both,
write that
bro.
down. Yeah, I gotta cannot say that up in Cali. Yeah.
There's all kind. Another one is like if you ever take your fingers like this and scratch underneath your chin with your fingers. So you're on radio.
It's a sign language thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like I'm sitting in Chicago and I'm doing this. A guy from the other table. What's your problem, man? Excuse me. Well, what is this? What is this? I go, bro, I was just scratching my chin. In Chicago, or the Italians, that's F-U. So this guy looks at me, I look at him, and he's up.
Yeah. Oh, man. Crazy how everything changes. But the main thing I try to think of is that, comedy is universal. The humor will always be there. And so, like you said, just instead of saying ukus, you got to say head lice.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you put your brand of comedy on it, and the fish out of water. I mean, in a very general way, like when you go, I'm a small guy in a big football family.
Yeah.
That would work everywhere.
It would, yeah.
Now, of course, you go to Chicago, they're not going to know your family is famous for football over here, but you can say,
gotta explain
my dad,
it,
and the Tuinei family is very well known in football. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I'm in comedy. I mean, that's funny. Yeah. You say, you talk about your height. You say, here I am going, my chances of making the NFL are...
slim to none.
Well, instead of saying slim to none, you say, are like, Jay Leno trying to get in the NFL.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That's where the comedy comes.
Yeah, I always thought of, just what would it be like if I try to do an open mic or a small show up in the mainland. I'll definitely have to prepare for it and put up a...
You know what you do, bro? You go to some place like the Store or the Laugh Factory, and you go to an open mic, and you go up there and you die for 10 minutes. Yeah. And it's like, I compared it to my early surfing days, right? And I sat there, I watched Pipeline for about an hour. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to go out and eat it. Just eat it and see how bad, right? In fact, I have this scar right here from Pipeline. Went over the fall, bam. Yeah, I used to surf a lot. I was into it. But you know who else was very good? A ripper. Yeah. Willie K.
Really?
You look at Willie K, you go, what? Yeah. Out at Banyan's.
I didn't know that.
Oh, bro, everybody went, bro, he was the man. About a rip. Anyway, my mentality was always after that, go out and eat it. And then you come up, that wasn't that bad. Now, you must know about that. How many times you look at somebody across the line and go, whoa.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, even audience, too, because I perform a lot in downtown with Jose's shows, Get all Howleys in the crowd, and they don't understand, but once in a while you crack them. But, I bombed many times. What is your worst bomb you had on stage? I'm sure you have a story about that.
Well, there were. It was all on Tom Jones because the last thing they want is anybody doing 20 minutes. So my top 3 bombs are with Tom Jones. Okay, but the absolute worst, right, was I was playing the Kiamisha Lake. This is when you've heard comics talk about I was playing the Catskills.
Yeah.
This is the Catskills.
Okay.
Okay, and it's what they call I forgot what it's called, but it's like a resort, and you pay money, and then you don't pay money on anything, and it's designed for Jewish people because there can't be money involved in anything, or they're unable to relax. Right? I'm serious. So you walk into shows for free, you order dinner for free, everything's included in this one big amount that they pay. Okay, so I'm opening for Tom Jones there, right? And so I get up. They booed David Brenner off stage the night before. They hate comics in this place for some reason. I don't know what it is, right? So everybody goes, Kiamisha Lake, you're going to eat it, because they've seen comics eat it all the time, right? I said, wow, why not? I don't care. Bring it on.
We're not scared.
I'm not scared, but I've been beat up before, right? So I walk out. Sure enough, 2 minutes into my act, get off! Boo! Get down there, throwing napkins and get the hell off. And I said, whoa, everybody, listen. I got to explain something to you. Tom Jones is not waiting in the wings for me to finish. I do 20 minutes, then I get off, and he comes on. If I don't do my 20 minutes, you sit here and stare at a blank stage and listen to canned music. Just let me do my deed, and I'll be up. Oh, get up! So I'm suffering through, literally throwing napkins and just get the hell up. You're not funny! And all this kind of stuff, right? So I got to do 20 minutes, right?
Right.
I do 15 minutes and then go, you know what? Thank you so much. That's my time. I really appreciate you listening. Yeah, get off! And for 5 minutes, I do circus bows. Thank you, waving my hands. They're screaming, and I'm going, I can't do anymore. Thank you so much. I pretend they're giving me a standing ovation.
Right.
5 minutes, which is, how long 5 minutes can be,
5 hours, fella.
I have them whipped into a frickin' feeding Get off the stage! They're screaming at me, right? So I do this for 5 minutes. Finally, I see Tom, right, Tom Jones, walk out to the side. I go, that's it for me. I'm out of here. And I start walking off. They stand up and they cheer because I'm finally getting off stage, right? I walk past Tom and he says to me, oh, you did good, boy. I go, thank you, Tom. He walks out and it goes up, right? So I walk in the back. There's this old Jewish man in the back. He's got a cigar. Right. Been there, since, the 1900s, right? And he looks at me, he goes, hey, kid. I turn to him, he goes, that's the ballsiest thing I ever seen.
That's a great story to tell.
But you know what? And you know what? That's where I always try to tell the people from the country or the underprivileged kids or, the kids not fortunate enough to go to Punahou and stuff. I said, what you learned, you can't buy. You learned trial by fire. Right. You have a fearlessness that you can't buy because you know what it's like to turn the corner and see broad and know you're going down. Right. But what did you do? I can't tell you how many fights I got in Waianae where I got beat to a pulp. I was in a lot of fights because I was mouthy, and I won very few of them. And I remember the counselor. He says to me, Annie, I said, he goes, that was half the first string, OIA champions beating the crap out of you. And I go, well, I was being mouthy, maybe I deserved it. He says to me, let me ask you something. Why didn't you run? And I remember just looking and going, it never occurred to me.
Because I'm from Waianae. We don't run in Waianae. We run to you, but not away from you.
I said, it never occurred to me.
Yeah.
And that's the strength. And your family's from that side. You know what I'm saying? You think about the times when all of a sudden they turned that corner. Where did that come from?
Right.
You know what? excuse me? And they turn, they get real quiet, laser focus.
Right.
What? You know, where does that come from? I get chicken skin.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too.
And that's something that, you know, I think we're fortunate to have. And you know, I tell the kids, bro, when I go talk at the schools, you don't pick your parents. You don't pick where you live. To a certain age, you don't pick what you wear. You don't pick your haircut. You don't pick nothing, right? But when you can make a choice, are you going to break the cycle of what you didn't like?
Right.
That's the key.
That is. And I feel like that mentality just helped you become successful in who you are today, definitely.
Well, that and something Bill Cosby said, again, this is way before he was a pervert, right? When he said...
Did you meet Bill Cosby before?
I never met him.
Never met him?
I never met him. But, I studied him a lot.
Right.
I studied a lot of the comics. I listened to a lot of the... I was a...
So who was your idols, just real quick, for your big comics?
Cosby, number one, probably. Early Red Fox.
Okay.
You know, early Red Fox, you know, before he was super dirty.
Right.
You know, Lenny Bruce, of course. Although, you know, he wasn't my generation funny. Our Lenny Bruce would be Bill Hicks, who has passed away. Do you know Bill Hicks?
Yeah, I know Bill Hicks, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you hear his stuff.
Yeah.
He's our generation's Lenny Bruce. But Dick Gregory, Bob Newhart, I met Shecky Green. He married a local girl, and we talked. Oh, sorry, there, I bumped the mic. You know, and he... those kind of guys, and probably above and beyond all the rest was Johnny Carson. And I would turn on Johnny Carson every night, and if he was doing well on his monologue, I'd turn it off.
Right.
It's when he didn't do well that I wanted to watch, because that's what I was doing. I wasn't doing well. How did he handle it?
Yeah.
You know, and the trick was, for any comics that might be listening to this, it's if you're not doing well, right, you slow down. Your tendency.
You're talking if you're not doing well on stage.
Yeah, if you're on stage and you're doing your act,
yeah.
and it's not going well, you slow down.
Slow down.
Slow down, agonizingly slow.
Okay.
And it's against every instinct in your body, because your instinct is to rush to the funny part, to the punchline. But that's not the most important part of the joke. The most important part is the setup, right?
Yeah, the premise, letting them know what the premise is.
Yes, yeah. but it's kind of like, and I always, this is a terrible analogy and probably dates me, but it's like trying to make love with somebody of the opposite sex, or I guess now you'd say same sex, right? If you're pursuing that person and they're not responding, pushing harder is not generally the answer.
You gotta slow down.
Backing off, kind of rebuild and start over. If you think of that, because when you're asking somebody to laugh, you're asking them for a very personal thing.
Right.
Did you know you can't tickle someone can't tickle you that you're suspect of? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
A pervert who a young girl looks at and is leery of can't be tickled by him. She won't laugh. That's how complex the laugh mechanism is.
Yeah.
So when you're getting people to laugh, they're letting you in. It's intimate.
Right.
You know.
Are you the type of comic? I know this is mainly for comedians, but do you when you do your material, do you come up with it on stage, or are you one of those guys that write it out before and come up with the idea and you try it out on stage?
I used to do that, you know, but here, as I see the sunset of my career coming up, I basically, you know, I'm wringing the last few drops out of this washcloth, you know. Yeah. So I don't sit down, but I used to sit down and write and you know, and tweak and try it out and record everything. Right. But now, I mean, I could literally do 2 hours on stage with all the material I have. So what I'm trying to do is find audience that probably haven't heard what I've done, and you know, and do it. And to me, it takes years to get something work.
It is.
You know, just to tweak it. And I know comics, they didn't change one word for 20 years, and I used to think, wow, but the guy goes, I'm in a different city every year. What are the chances, whatever. I used to write, and I more now come up with stuff. Like when I was on the road, right? And I stay in dumps because I really can't afford much, these bed and breakfast. And I was at this Chinese guy's bed and breakfast, not bed and breakfast, Airbnb, right?
Right.
So I call him up. I go, yeah, how many? And he goes, oh yeah, $40 a day, $40 a day. You stay over here. This is in Anaheim somewhere.
Okay.
I went, oh, that sounds great. $40. He goes, you want sheets? Excuse me? Sheets on your bed. You want sheets? Well, yeah. Extra $2 a day. Well, okay, so it's $42. Yeah, you want pillowcase? Extra 50 cents. I mean, this is the kind of, and you go,
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so I'm more relating stuff that happened to me.
Sometimes the material writes itself. It's all experience.
Well, and it's in the telling.
Yeah. Definitely.
You'd be surprised how many people would tell that story. So I was at this Airbnb, and this Chinese guy wanted to charge me for linen.
It's all delivery, yeah.
And the whole audience is going, and? No, and he wanted to charge me for linen. It's actually possible to dissect, well, who said it? I think it was D.B. White. He said the thing about comedy is that it's like a frog. If you dissect it, you find out how it works, but it kills the thing.
That's a good analogy. Let's talk about All in the Ohana. Just because that I watched that numerous times. I think I still have the tape at my parents' house, but. Yeah. So I did a little research on it, and it came out in 1981.
Yeah.
And then I believe, I know some people said it too, that you were probably the first person to do that, play all the characters. And then that's when, I think in 1996, The Nutty Professor came out with Eddie Murphy.
And if you look at the dinner scene in Nutty Professor, it looks almost exactly like All in the Ohana.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff that, which is just proof of concept for me.
Yeah.
How many good ideas we have in Hawaii, but I have that Hawaii mentality, and I didn't have a national mentality.
So I think Eddie copied you. I feel like
I probably did, but what are you going to do?
Right.
But how All in the Ohana came about is School Days was a big success, and I played a bunch of different characters. But my critique of it was all the characters looked kind of the same because it was me, right? And I went, I did okay. We didn't do makeup, and I just goofied my face, but and it worked. And I go, so what could we do where it would make sense that all the people look the same? A family. The whole family would look kind of the same, right? So that's how we came up with that. And it's interesting because I shot like a 5-minute pilot for it, and and by the way, the engines that drove this were, first of all, Larry Fleece, and then there was John Ray, and then there was Phil Arnone, who was the general manager of KGB at the time. And this is back when they would do deficit financing, and the stations drove it. They would, put together where we,
right.
and Chemo got sponsors, Ala Moana. You couldn't do it today. It would cost $250,000, and the station would go, okay, we're going to air it. What do you do? Okay. Right, but that's how I came up with doing the whole family, And we accidentally made an evergreen project because when I did School Days, I went, wow, we shot the gas station, and you could see the gas prices. Gas was 75 cents for regular at that day, and so it really dates it. So we avoided a bunch of that kind of stuff, and. As a result, we accidentally made an evergreen product.
Oh wow, yeah, that's one of my favorite local films that I always watched when I was a kid. And also, you had a show called In the Car when you'd interview people. And then you see, I see a lot of similar, like you see Jerry Seinfeld's one he has now.
I know
comedians
Jerry
and
Seinfeld. I met him before he was famous, and I
Yeah.
called him up and said, "Brah, that's my show. If you do your show, you're killing my show. It's not like you don't have enough money. Leave some for the rest of us. God, fund it." Right? And I was doing weekly shows 6 months before he aired his first one.
the comedians
right?
in
And I
cars
went,
getting
comedian
coffee.
getting
Yeah.
And I figured he'd get bored. He won't do it
Right.
anymore, right? So I did it. I flew to L.A. I shot people in Los Angeles. And at one point, the guy goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, and he goes, "Oh, so you're trying to be like a Hawaiian Jerry Seinfeld?" And it went through me
No,
like a
I
knife.
did it first. Yeah.
But you know what? I hesitate because I'm kind of over it. And I went, you know what? Fine. And that's when I started in tooling around.
Tooling around, and that's the show you have.
That's the show
right
I
now.
have now, and it's about motorcycles, and you know, a lot had to do. You know, in the midst of all of that, I got cancer, right?
Right.
And I got tongue cancer, and you know that was touch and go there for a second, you know, and basically what it, you know, my joke is, bro, everybody talk about the bucket list. When you can see the bucket, it's right there in the room. Wow, your priorities change, right?
But you're all healed now, though, right?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, what I have is easily treatable, but it tends to come back.
Okay.
That's the only caveat, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, but when I had that, I said, okay, what am I going to do? What do I love to do?
Right.
Well, what I like doing is riding and working on motorcycles. And, you know, I said, I like that kind of stuff. Even though my dad was a mechanic, and when I was growing up, I wanted to be a surfer, and I hated all that crap, I realized I was overhauling cars when I was 13. You know, I was changing brakes. I was doing all this. Now, my dad, he never went, okay, this is the piston, and the rings keep the oil from the... He never, just fix that. Shut up. You know, never mind make, what they call niele. You know, only hana, you know, niele. His generation didn't ask. You just watched.
You just did it, yeah.
Right. And again, he was a jerk. But anyway... but now I go, I know how all that stuff works. I'm not that bad. I just rebuilt my whole bike. My motorcycle that you see on that tooling around, I built it. Every nut, every bolt.
From the ground up. Yeah.
From the ground up. I mean, you know, I helped, Bob O'Neill helped me when I split the cases because, you know, I never did that before.
Yeah.
Kick-only motorcycles, reassembled the transmission after I took it apart and found the broken gear and all, because, bro, it's like a Rubik's Cube, you know what I'm saying? So... other than that, and then some welding, my friend Mike Holmberg, is that his last name? I don't know. He helped me with the welding, you know. But you know, but I love it.
Yeah, so you love it, and might as well make a TV show out of it, like you're doing right now. And if you have something passionate for it, and might as well do it.
Right.
What do you have any? You have any plans in the future, in the near future?
Well, you know, I'll be 66 in 20 days.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, what's your 5-year plan?
Yeah.
Oh, not having to get up in the middle of the night and peeing too many times, you know. So, you know, but it's interesting, you know, that's another thing you've heard me in my act talk about getting older,
right.
You know. And, you know, it's funny. There's a weird thing I like about being old, you know. I'm mellower. I was kind of a snapcase when I was young, you know. But then you get to this point, you realize you ain't gonna lick nobody anymore. So you know, you just might as well be mellow. I mean, you're far from that stage, but I'm just saying, you know. And another thing is, the motorcycle I kickstart now, I've had for 20 years, right? So you do the math, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's getting a little harder to kickstand. And me and all the friends that are my age that are still kickstarting bikes,
right.
You know, I have a bike now, a 2000 Indian that I picked up recently that has an electric starter on it.
Oh.
I don't ride it a lot, but I look at it and I'm like that. I look at it as my retirement, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm just happy, you know, to be alive.
Yeah.
My brother died of cancer. My father died of cancer.
Oh, sorry about that.
Nah, you know. But going through that with him really helped me through mine. And I would like to give a vote to medical marijuana. because I don't smoke now. I didn't
Yeah.
smoke before, but during chemo, if it wasn't for marijuana,
It helped a lot. Yeah.
bruh, it's the miracle drug. It's a couple hits.
Yeah.
The hard part is after you pop cancer, putting that pipe down,
Yeah.
still feel good, bruh.
Right.
Well, George Carlin used to say, I write material, then I take a couple hits and punch it up.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And with Tooling Around, you can give a shout out about it because it airs on what, K5?
Yeah, it's on K5, 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights.
Weekly, Tuesday nights.
We're this Wednesday. I mean, this month is a year. This is my first full year after of coming back because I went down when I had cancer for a while there, but now I'm back. We've done a year of shows, which is basically 26 shows, and they re-air them at least one time. So I did that, and I just got off the phone with the station. They're going to renew for next year. I'm hoping to get the same 7 o'clock slot, but that may change. But what I'm trying to do now is do more mainland stuff, right? So in January, I'm shipping my car and my motorcycle to San Diego, and I'm going to do Arizona, Vegas, California, try to shoot some content and do some gigs while I'm up there. Yeah, and I'm doing those Kia spots. I don't know if you see those Kia commercials.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, well, my friend, he calls me up. That's how I got the Indian motorcycle, by the way. I was going, I don't know if I want to do, car commercials. And he goes, I don't know if I can afford you, Andy. I went, it's not about the money. And then he points to this Indian that he has sitting in his service bay in the Waipahu Kia store.
Yeah.
He goes, would you be interested in that? I went, oh, man. Fast forward to me in an elf's costume.
Yeah.
Hey, I know a guy, right?
I gotta search up that commercial.
Yeah. Well, it's wildly popular. I host the Toys for Tots every year.
Right.
4,000 bikers, and I can't tell you how many people came up. Hey, I know a guy. The joke is, well, Uncle Macaste, oh, boss. Don't worry, honey. I know a guy, and it's Kia. My friend.
Yeah.
At Kia, great guy. We go back 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great that you're still going strong, still doing gigs, and up with your production, with your TV show, and just at the ending part of this podcast. Do you have any last I'll say words of advice for any upcoming comedians or upcoming local people trying to follow their dreams? Because you obviously did it. You branched out. You turned down your high selling job with your copy machine salesman, and you just ducked down and followed your dreams, and you did it. You made it to the top. So do you have any advice or words of wisdom?
I scratched the surface here in Hawaii.
Right.
But as far as nationally, I did not make it. I remember talking to Don Ho about that. And I feel sort of the same way when he used to say, Andy, I was just in the right place at the right time, huh? I wasn't that talented, but I was right place, right time. And that's what happened with me. If you and I were both doing comedy back then, they might have picked you to replace rap, but I was the only game.
Right.
Well, how do you, I guess I didn't quit thanks to Melvin, and I hung in there and ate it, with Frank, who, by the way, is a very good friend of mine to this day. Because Frank De Lima, because how much
I might have him on the podcast too, just to talk some stories.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not religious by any stretch of the imagination, but spiritually, and he's very religious. You know that, and he helped me, when I was going through divorces, and when I had money problems and different things, we argue like married couples sometimes because our sensibilities are different.
Yeah.
But as far as advice for young comics
or any local people trying to follow their dreams in any career.
That's two basic differences with in general
yeah.
In general, about being successful is pick something you're passionate about. And I've done a lot of interviews of people, and everyone says the same thing, and I believe it too.
Right.
I remember talking to a guy who goes, "Bro, I'm going to nursing school." Nursing school? What, bro? You love nursing? Nah, bro, I hate cleaning up all that doo-doo and shishi, but hey, the money is good.
Right.
Oh, man. Is that the guy you want working on you? You know what I'm saying? So like when they ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up, sweetheart? I want to be a veterinarian or whatever, right? They should be asking those kids, what makes you the happiest?
Right.
When you're doing it, what makes you the happiest? What would you do if you could do it for free because you enjoyed it so much? Pick what you're passionate about, period. You know, that's in general what I'd say to people. For comics, tape your shows. Okay? I'm showing my age saying tape.
Yeah.
But record.
I usually just record it on my iPhone, the voice recorder.
Whatever.
Just leave it on.
Whatever it is, you put it down, do your show, go back, critique it, and see how many words you can take out of something. Yeah. You know, I use this when I was teaching comedy, right? The joke is the town was so small, the mice were hunchback. Okay? You can't take one word out of that joke and have it work. But you'd be surprised how many people go, I was in this town the other day, man, it was a small town. I'm talking small. I mean, this is how small this town was. They had mice in this tiny little town. It's so small, the town I'm talking about, that the mice were hunchback.
Too much.
Well, but that's how a lot of people tell a joke. Guys on stage. Now, record your stuff and say, what can I take out of that? Condense it
Tighten
down. Tighten it. Because you have the setup and you have the punchline. The closer you can get those two, boom. And I would also like to say to comics that, you know, my kudos to you, and this goes to you, Tumua. They say the hardest industry to be successful in is entertainment.
Right.
Within entertainment, the hardest segment is comedy. Within comedy, the hardest segment is stand-up.
Yeah.
That's the row you've chose to hoe.
So if you can do that, you can do all forms of comedy and entertainment.
But I'm just saying you are picking
the
one
hardest.
of the most difficult things to be successful at. So you got yourself, you know, I give you credit, bro. I see what you're doing, you know. Now you've got, you know, Tihadi.
Oh yeah. Shaw.
Yeah. Of course, Shaw Tom. She's you know, she introduced me to you. She said, "Hey, I got this kid and whatever." And if she puts you, but you know, people always say, "Oh, you get Shaw Thompson helping you out." All she did was put you up to the plate.
Right. That's all she did.
You got to swing your own bat.
Yeah.
You strike out. I don't care who you are. But you know, you stepped up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
saying?
Thank
you. Yeah. So that pretty much concludes the podcast. I know we went a little over time, but that's fine.
Did we? Well, bro. What else is
what else? I appreciate you coming on the podcast, Andy.
You got it, bro. Edit it.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit it.
Okay, remember now. Shorten it.
Shorten it. Take out the least amount of words.
Get to the least amount of words. So basically, the podcast will be, how's it, Andy? How's it? Thank you for being here. Good night.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you guys can catch Andy Bumatai's show, Tooling Around, on K5 Tuesdays, 7 o'clock. He'll also be doing some gigs here and there. You can follow him on Instagram, right? What is your Instagram?
When does this air? Because I'll be in Vegas on January 17th.
Oh, I'm going to try to put it on tonight or tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I got
tell
it
your
on
friends.
it's on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, really?
If you click I got it approved on there. So you click that and then should be on there. I'm going to put it on YouTube too, the audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for coming out.
You got it, brother.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening, folks.
Yeah.